there, but stop that redirection as well is really going to be key in allowing Matteo to kind of get some sort of momentum swing in this game. I do love the fighting terrestrialization though on that Porygon 2. We don't see too often the psychic types, and we've already talked about how fairy types are few and far between at the moment in the format, so that could play a big part in this game.
Well, Grimmsnarl and Porygon 2 going to come out right away, trainers. Perhaps not the most offensive lead, but it's certainly one that is going to be causing some problems for Michelle here. You got Magmar and the Dragapult on the field. Michelle, of course, wants to hit hard and fast, but when you've got the screens and you've got something as bulky as Porygon 2 with the Eviolite, going to be tricky.
Yeah, Matteo in a really good position here to just get that Reflector turn 1. It's going to give the Porygon 2 a little bit more of a buffer. It's already going to be able to take those big, powerful Dragon-type attacks. And do you lock into the Outrage here? Because if you do, it's kind of risky in this position. Maybe you want to reposition that Dragapult, but we're not seeing it here. You're seeing that Grimmsnarl get that Reflect set up.
There is Reflect and Dragapult. We could say at this point, partner Pokemon, and Michelle loves to run a Dragapult in the taunts we've seen him in. Going for the U-turn, pivoting around to reveal one of the Pokemon in the back. We have the privileged position of being able to see what is lurking in the back for Michelle here. And yeah, I mean, we've got a nice little Firewater Grass core there. And coming into this situation, looking like it might be the Primarina joining the field. That's going to be threatening the Grimmsnarl for super effective damage with its Fairy type moves.
Yeah, and it's I think out of the two, there were options there. The Primarina had to be the choice there. It comes in, it can start threatening the Grimmsnarl on Matteo's side of the field. Start getting rid of that, because the longer that stays around in the field, the more disruptive it will be. And it's also got access to that Spirit Break as well, so you kind of want to remove it to prevent those special attack drops on your side as soon as possible. Porygon 2, of course, getting the Trick Room set up there, so now in a position where it's favorable in the speed tiering.
Exactly, Porygon 2 going to be going before some of the faster Pokemon, because that is exactly what Trick Room does, reverses the speed order here, and it's going to be Porygon 2 now switching. It's done its duty, it's twisted the dimensions, coming out instead. Here comes Ursaluna. Really nice switch here, because at the end of this turn, it will get the burn from the Flame Orb. We don't have to stall a turn by protecting, but let's see what the Primarina can achieve. Going for a super effective Hyper Voice. Good thing that Light Screen was set up by the Grimmsnarl, mitigating the damage, but there is the burn. So all that's going to do is going to be boosting the attack of the Ursaluna ever so slightly faster. Flame Orb doesn't need to activate now. It's got that boost to its Guts ability. Guts, of course, boosted by any kind of status condition, and the burn is not going to be halving the attack. Quite the opposite. It's going to be doing even more damage with its ground and facade moves.
Yeah, that's it. And I think you played it so well, Matteo, here, but also covering bases as well. If you're Michelle, you've got that Primarina into a nice position where it can threaten the Ursaluna. You've just got to utilize that Magmar this turn and make sure that you do remove the Ursaluna from the field if you can. If you are going to sacrifice your Magmar, you are going to pull in using that Follow Me. You have to be careful about doing that though, because the Grimmsnarl, although has switched out, did have access to that taunt, which it could fire into that slot and shut it down.
Well, Porygon 2 going to be rejoining the fray instead here as the Grimmsnarl switches out, and Primarina deciding that it doesn't like the face of this big scary bear on the field right now. Magmar also protecting, so Michelle just angling to stall out some turns of Trick Room here. It only lasts for a few turns, then it will expire, and then Michelle will be out acting faster again outside of the Trick Room reverse speed orders environment. And of course, this Ursaluna not protected from its burn that is ever whittling away at its health.
Yeah, and the problem is with it as well, you kind of in this situation, you want to probably, you do want to go for the Facade, but doing that, you're probably just going to get redirected, and it could be into that Magmar. And as we are kind of seeing the potential there is the option to go for the Terrestrialization on the Magmar into that Ghost type. If it does and it pulls in the Facade, it's going to be immune, so that you'll get no utility out of the Ursaluna this turn. And you want to go for the Earthquake, but it's conflicting because you've got nothing on your side of the field that can resist that. So you're going to take damage whatever you do, whatever you lock into, and do you kind of take the risk? We are going to get into it though. We look like we're seeing a Terrestrialization. Yeah, that is going to be Magmar going all spooky, taking a walk on the ghostly side, becoming a ghost type. The Porygon 2 over on Matteo's end also has access to Terra Blast. We do see Porygon 2 sometimes going for the Bear Terra Blast out of Terrestrializing, because Porygon 2 can deal a significant amount of damage with that move, but because it's a ghost type, will not be affecting it. But instead, it's a big old Earthquake with a critical hit onto the Magmar to boot. Primarina
able to have a little bit of a snack here, getting ready to perform its aria coming up later in the turn. And of course, damaging his own Porygon 2 there as well. But yes, that was the Terra Blast coming out, redirected into the Magmar, being a ghost type, not going to be taking any damage. And now that Ursaluna is just one burn away, it looks like, from going down.
Yeah, but a really nice play there from Matteo saying, okay, well, if I commit to this facade, we talked about it, I could get punished for it. And exactly what would have happened in that situation after the terrestrialization from Michelle. Going for the Earthquake, you do get some damage onto the Porygon 2, but you can see the value in that light screen from earlier on from that Grimmsnarl, able to take those Hyper Voices from the Primarina so comfortably. Like you say, it's going to get one more turn out, but do we just see the double protect on Michelle's side just to stall that out so the Ursaluna goes down? Maybe it opens a little bit of a window for Matteo to do something else, switch it out, maybe save it for later, or just go on the attack and maybe trying to catch something as we're seeing a switch in here.
That ghostly Magmar vanishes from the field as Rillaboom is switched in just in time, ready to provide a fake out on the next turn. There's Primarina going for the protect as well, and of course if you're the Porygon 2, you can just recover all of that HP back, having taken damage from the Earthquake. But here comes another Earthquake being fired off, and of course Rillaboom going to be mitigating that damage thanks to the Grassy Terrain. A critical hit on the own Porygon 2 there from Matteo, but there is that recover coming back out. This Rubber Duck is now looking all squeaky and new with a lot more HP to its name as well. However, the Grassy Terrain here is going to make sure that the Ursaluna is out of range of being knocked out by its own burn.
Yeah, that's the one drawback here. You think, okay, I'm going to bring the Grassy Terrain in to weaken the Earthquake, but at the same time, you kind of allow that Ursaluna at least one more turn. And now the Ghost type isn't on the field in the Magmar, and you can lock into that facade, but you've got to get around this next turn of fake out that's active from the Rillaboom. Easy able to go into that slot and just take it down. If you are Matteo, maybe at this stage you just say, okay, I'm going to allow that to go down. I'm going to get some utility out of my Porygon 2, try and get some good damage onto either the Rillaboom or that Primarina.
Porygon 2, from its download ability, got a boost to its physical attack there. What you really want to see is the special attack boost, then it becomes a real offensive threat. Fake out coming out into the Porygon 2, not allowing it to set up Trick Room this turn, as the Primarina is able to go for another Hyper Voice, serenading the Pokemon on the field, but just look at how little damage the Porygon 2 takes from that. For now, Matteo going to be wanting to target down this Porygon 2, trying to remove it from the field before the dimensions get all twisted again.
Yeah, really nice play there from Michelle, going for the fake out into that Porygon 2, kind of saying, okay, I know you're going to protect the Ursaluna because of the threat, but you're in that similar situation this next turn, regardless if a Trick Room is up or not. You've got the Grassy Gry that's going to threaten and pick up a knockout there, but it does take away all the attention from the Rillaboom, so doing a job in that sort of respect, where the Porygon 2 is less threatened going into this next turn.
Wood Hammer, big hammer connecting down on that Porygon 2, boosted by the Grassy Terrain. The Reflect working wonders here, and the Hyper Voice also not going to be enough. The Porygon 2 very low health, but that is okay. The Ursaluna going down here finally took enough damage. The Ursaluna that was so threatening on the field, but it doesn't go for the Trick Room. It's just a big Ice Beam into the Rillaboom. It does not get the freeze, thankfully, for Michelle. Interesting here. So the Porygon 2 could have set up Trick Room. It depends on the final Pokemon in the back for Matteo. Maybe Trick Room is not the favored environment for that Pokemon. And once again, the Porygon 2 can just recover it all away. And that's going to be the Volcarona joining the field here.
Yeah, and this is a Pokemon that really doesn't enjoy Trick Room too much, depending on what it's got access to, of course. But it does, in this scenario, have that Struggle Bug, which is going to hit the Rillaboom for super effective damage, and then weaken that Primarina as well. You've still got to consider that you've got to keep things as healthy as possible, you know, especially with the Porygon 2. I think it's quite pivotal for that Dragapult in the end game, where we know that is still in the back. The Magmar's low health at this stage, but it's about getting rid of the threats on the field right now. That Rillaboom is threatened quite heavily here from the Volcarona, and we're going to see the second terrestrialization, this time from Matteo's side of the field.
Finally time for this Volcarona to get sparkly right now for Matteo. It's become a Dragon type from Moth. Getting all Draconian right now as this Volcarona lets out its victory cry on the field. Here comes a big overheat connecting down into the Rillaboom. Of course it's going to be enough for the knockout here, but at the cost of special attack to this Volcarona, reducing the move after being used. And now all eyes coming down to this Primarina. Another Hyper Voice coming out, resisted by the Volcarona, where once it was super effective. And there we go, this Porygon 2 is just left once more to be able to recover. This Porygon 2 is very quickly becoming the Rubber Duck Thorn in Michelle's side.
Yeah, definitely. And just because it's so hard to take down and you don't really have a good way to deal the damage that you need to get rid of it quickly and effectively, we are going to see the Dragapult come in, and that's maybe something that you could combine with the Primarina. The one thing that you would say about that Volcarona now, it has taken a -2 special attack drop from that overheat, so it has to switch out. But you've got a pretty free switch into the Grimstall in the back, and even if it does go down, it's not the worst thing in the world. And it's also got that fairy typing, so it has the immunity to the dragon type as well. So in a nice position, Michiel's got a little bit of work to do, has got some offensive threats on the field right now. The Volcarona in a little bit of a position where you want to maybe switch it out just so you can get more utility in the later game. But the Porygon 2, like you say, maybe you try and get that Trick Room up, because if you can, you're in a way more favourable position.
Dragapult going to be absolutely key for Michelle heading into this late game. It's really the only Pokemon right now for him that can deal significant enough damage, especially to the Porygon 2. Here comes the Dragon Darts into the Porygon 2, both of them redirected, because of course Grimmsnarl is a fairy type, wouldn't be taking any damage there. Big Moonblast into the Grimmsnarl, but the Grimmsnarl hangs on here, and that's an Ice Beam connecting into the Dragapult. It's got to fear that Porygon 2. Are we going to see a freeze? No, we're not, fortunately. Just going to be that grassy terrain recovery. So really, Porygon 2 and Dragapult threatening each other mightily right now.
Yeah, now the problem is Michiel has locked into that Dragon Dart.
Yeah.
So if you need to, before this Volcarona comes onto the field, you need to remove the Dragapult, because the Dragapult will be able to pick up a knockout quite easily against that Volcarona. The problem is your solo health. I think there the Porygon 2 would have been better going for the Trick Room than going for the Recover the next turn and allowing the Grimmsnarl to maybe get an attack off like the Spirit Break into the Dragapult this turn, and then you can try and deal with the Primarina. It's still a big threat because Terrasilize into the Dragon type, you're susceptible to those fairy type attacks that the Primarina's got access to as well. Really difficult to make a decision, but coming right down to the wire here.
Yeah, well, there's going to be another Dragon Dart. It's finally going to be enough for this Rubber Duck to be out of the bath and back into the Pokeball. That's Porygon 2 down. Just the Grimmsnarl and the Volcarona left here. And now that Terra Dragon on the Volcarona may well come back to bite it in the face of the Dragapult hanging on. And I think this is exactly what Michelle likes to do. It kind of looks dicey for him, but then he finds a way to navigate the Trick Room, has enough HP remaining on his Pokemon to pivot around and get back in the position that you love to be in. Of course, you've got the Magmar in the back. It can still deal significant damage with Overheat in other matchups. When you've just got a Terra Dragon Volcarona, all you need is the Dragon Dart.
Yeah, and I mean, even if one of these threats on Michelle's side goes down, you've got that Magmar to bring in, redirect.
Oh my goodness.
But we're not going to need it. Dragon Darts, more than enough, boosted by that Choice Band for Michelle to take game one.
Dragapult firing off its trusty little Dreepies from its side cannons into that Volcarona. Michelle played absolutely phenomenally there. It just goes to show that even when you're running a more hyper offense team like Michelle is running, you don't need to worry necessarily when that Trick Room goes off. If you have the tools to be able to deal with it, if you're able to protect around it enough, just as Michelle was able to do there, then you may well come out on top. And I think that was a real masterclass as to how to play around it that way, actually.
Yeah, exactly, because I think you've got to really congratulate Matteo with how much pressure he was able to apply in that game, especially when you get the screens up early on, you get the good utility with the Porygon 2 to get the Trick Room set up, and then the Ursaluna on the field, taking the Will-O-Wisp on the switching, kind of saving the job of the Flame Orb item there, but in a position where it's going to really start doing some disruptive damage. But Michelle just taking their time in that situation, protecting where they can to just stall out those turns, utilizing the Rillaboom in the right way. The Terrasilization as well with that Ghost typing makes it difficult then for the Ursaluna to decide what to do. Do I go for a Facade and then risk it doing nothing because of the Follow Me, or do I lock in with the Earthquake and just not get the damage that I need in this situation while my Trick Room turns are ticking away?
Yeah, exactly. And ticking away is exactly the name of the game. And the thing is, Porygon 2, it felt like in that previous game, felt like on quite a few of the turns it was having slightly too much asked of it. You kind of want it to recover and set up Trick Room at the same time.
Yeah.
Want it to fire off an Ice Beam and set up Trick Room at the same time. And so working out how best to play that Porygon 2, where best to target your moves with the Porygon 2 is going to be absolutely crucial for Matteo. It was amazing to see just how little damage some of Michelle's Pokemon were doing to the Porygon 2. So the theme that's coming out here, Lee, I think, is just trying to target it down and deal with it sooner rather than later, especially because then you're paving the way for the Ursaluna if you get the Porygon 2 with Trick Room set up.
Yeah, I think if you got those two positioned well and, you know, they're able to dish out damage freely like they weren't really able to in that first game, then I think you're going to be in a much better position. But it's whether or not you go down that route straight away, or do you maybe lean on something a little bit more like the Annihilate, which could change things up.
Well, it's going to be Paldean Champion Annihilate joining the field alongside the Volcarona, but another switch up too. Sneasler and Dragapult. Sneasler, the Pokemon that with its Dark Claw move could make another Pokemon have a nap. have a poison or have a paralysis on the field.
Yeah, the Annihilape's a great Pokemon to come in against it. It doesn't have to worry about that fake out, of course, and the Diaclaw not going to be doing super effective damage. You do, on the other hand, have to worry about this Dragapult, because we have seen how devastatingly strong this Pokemon can be if it's not kept in check because of that Choice Band item and the potential threat of that Outrage as well.
Well, an immediate turn 1 Terrestrialization here in game 2, and it's going to be targeted down into the Dragapult once more. Well, for Matteo right now, going into that Terra Dragon, so going all in on the offense right now. The Dragon Dart's going to be dealing even more damage with the Choice Band, with the Terra Dragon. Of course, that is how Terrestrialization works. You get an extra boost if it's of the same type. Oh my goodness. Volcarona down to only about a third of its HP. Annihilate the same, but you do give it a little stack to its Rage Fist. Here comes the Diaclaw, just enough to knock out the Volcarona. Don't need to worry about the status.
No, not at all. You don't need it there if you're boosting that Dragon Darts with that Terrestrialization. The Annihilate does get the bulk up off, which is great, but you've taken so much damage in the process, which might be a little too much for you to get, you know, the utility, the use out of it going forward in this match. The Sneasler and that Dragapult, so oppressive as a lead. And, you know, the Porygon 2 coming in now, it's in a great position, but you've got to worry about that close combat now that really threatens you, and do you go into that fighting type? It's not going to be much benefit against the Dragapult. It's not going to give you any sort of support either here. And are you in the position where you can protect with the Annihilape, and then you can get that Trick Room up? Because I think if you can do that, if you are Matteo, you're in a much better position to then start threatening the Dragapult with potentially the Rage Fist there and picking up the damage, or a Drain Punch into it to try and recover some health. But you've still got to worry about the Pokemon sitting next to it, the Sneasler, which is threatening your Porygon 2 every turn this match.
Well, Porygon 2 now going to become overall fighting of its own. It's got its fist on its head, ready to go, and it's going to be training in the dojo alongside its partner fighting type, Annihilate. And here comes another big Dragon Dart down into Porygon 2. Really good damage into that bulky Pokemon. How is the Annihilate going to take this? It is going to hang on thanks to that bulk up defense boost on the previous turn, and it's going to be close combat into the Porygon 2. So the Annihilate is left free reign right now. It's got 2 boosts to its Rage Fist, and that's going to be the defense drop coming out on the Sneasler. Big Drain Punch coming out into the Dragapult is no longer immune to that because it's terrestrialized into a pure Dragon type. Annihilate gets a nice little bit of recovery. Michelle's got to be a little bit careful here as the Trick Room goes up, and he's got 2 of the fastest possible Pokemon on his side of the field.
Not in the best position right now. The Trick Room play is great, and I love the fact that Matteo didn't protect there. It was such a tempting thing to do to make sure that if you got the Trick Room up, you were in that position where you were able to get it. But the other thing to consider here is the smart targeting of Dragon Darts. If you protect with the Annihilate, the Dragon Darts would go into there, so you weren't really in much of a situation where you could protect with the Annihilate, even though you wanted to, because the Porygon 2 would have went down. But we are going to see the Porygon 2 just keep itself on the field a little bit longer with that recover.
But the Drain Punch cannot be said the same for this Dragon Ball. That's going down. A nice another bit of recovery here for this Annihilate. Perhaps Michelle's game plan heading into this game is not going to the plan that he envisioned as the Dragon Bolt and the Terrestrialization option is down. And now he has a good few turns of Trick Room to see out right now. That close combat just not doing enough. And the Sneasler just reducing its own defenses. It is carrying the Focus Sash, so that means that it's going to be surviving at least one hit here. And that Poison Touch on the Sneasler, really great ability that it has. Really nice for it to come out here actually into the Porygon 2, so it will be whittling it away. It can still recover, of course, and perhaps Michelle was hoping that at some point he could Diaclaw that Porygon 2 and buy some time, put it to sleep perhaps, but as it is, just the Poison.
Yeah, the Poison is great because you're kind of almost locking that Porygon 2 into the decision where you have to go for the recover to stick around on the field long enough. But if you do that, you're not getting any offensive kind of damage out, and you really want to be doing that with the Trick Room. And if you decide to go for an attacking move, not hitting anything for super effective here with that Terrestrialization, with the Primarina coming out. This is why it complements this Dragapult and the Sneasler so well. Coming out in front of these two fighting type Pokemon, going to be able to really put on a lot of pressure, and both of them have taken a lot of damage so far as the Rillaboom is joining the fray.
Yeah, Rillaboom joining really, really healthy, and Annihilate going to be able to recover a little bit thanks to this grassy terrain that's been so kindly set up by the Rillaboom here. Here comes a Terra Fighting Terra Blast into the Rillaboom that's just joined here. Love to see that Terra Fighting Terra Blast animation. It's so cool. Rillaboom taking just a little bit of chip damage right now, and the Annihilate, it just goes to show the fine margins that come in at high-level competitive play. If Matteo hadn't gone for that bulk up on the earlier turn, then the Annihilate would have gone down to the Dragon Darts, and then Mikhail is in a much easier position heading into the rest of the game, or an easy. I'm not sure about much. And even though it was surviving on such little HP, look at that. The Annihilate now back at half, essentially.
Yeah, and it has got access to the Drain Punch. It can go into the Rillaboom now and claim a little bit more of that health back, of course, with the immunity to the Fake Out. Doesn't need to worry about that there. Porygon 2, on the other hand, does, of course. And the Primarina is still in that position where it really isn't threatened too much other than the Rage Fist. It does have to worry about that because it has been boosted a couple of times now where it will be hitting extremely hard, especially after that bulk up additional boost to its attacking stat. But the nice thing about getting the Sneasler off the field was you reset those close combat drops, so it can come in a little bit fresher than it was feeling at close combat or 2 ago.
But the Rage Fist stacks onto the Annihilate will remain even after it switched out, as Grimmsnarl is going to be joining the field right now. It will set up the screens. It's interesting to have Grimmsnarl in the back. You don't often see that, but nice targeting from Michelle there. Into the Grimmsnarl, bringing that Grimmsnarl down very low indeed. But Prankster ability means that the Grimmsnarl is going to be able to set up screens and go for other status moves before anything that Michelle can do.
Yeah, but you've got that Fake Out now access on the Sneasler on Michelle's side, so you can slow down that Grimmsnarl a little bit, and maybe even go into the Porygon 2 to prevent it going for any other supporting options like resetting up the Trick Room again. And, you know, I think it's a really nice option here. You want to try and get rid of that Grimmsnarl as soon as possible, so it forces that Annihilate back out onto the field in a preferable position where you have then got that Primarina still healthy. It's not really threatened here, and it is able to close this matchup against that fighting Terra-type Porygon 2 that's really not looking forward to taking any potential Moonblasts on that slot.
Well, there comes the Fake Out into the Porygon 2 instead of the Grimmsnarl, so potentially it could have stayed on the field here, but Moonblast connecting now, super effective now to Porygon 2, still not enough, but this is where the poison could come in absolutely crucial if that grassy terrain weren't on the field. It's recovering and it's taking it slightly away. Matteo trying to pivot around really expertly here with the Annihilate and the Grimmsnarl in the back, but actually that poison was enough, just about, to secure the knockout onto the Porygon 2, so that's the Terra down as well for Matteo. Michelle now at a 3-2 Pokemon advantage.
Yeah, just controlling this match extremely well, making it hard for Matteo to get any sort of momentum here, and coming down to the Grimmsnarl, it is going to be able to come in, it is going to be able to offer some sort of screen support. You got to expect it would be the light screen to give you a little bit more support against that Primarina. Go for the Rage Fist into that Primarina, try and remove it from the field, but if Michelle kind of detects that, can just go for a Protect here and utilize that Sneasler. Sneasler has got the Focus Sash still intact, so it has got that little bit of a security blanket where it can get an attack off, remove something, or just get some useful damage onto that Annihilate.
It's actually going to be the Reflect coming out onto the field as Dire Claw connects down into the Grimmsnarl, secures the knockout. Michelle has been playing this so well, of course. The poison activation from Poison Touch on the Sneasler was very fortunate for Michelle there, as the Rage Fist connects down to Primarina, not enough to secure the knockout, and Primarina is able to recover a little bit of HP thanks to his berry. But as it turned out, that poison that came out from the Sneasler was just enough to secure the knockout on the Porygon 2. It's absolutely huge. And there's the Moonblast. That is going to be finishing up the Annihilate right now. And that is going to be Michelle Kelsch advancing to 5-0, winning Swiss Round 5 here in Dortmund.
Incredible play from Michelle, and our winner of round 5, and doing it in such fashion as well. Really relaxed going into that match. Not easy though. Matteo tried to make it as hard as possible, but